The small, leather-bound ledger sits on the corner of my mahogany desk, the same desk my Robert used for 40 years. Its cover is worn smooth, the corners softened with age. To anyone else, it's a relic, an old account book. But to me, it's a testament, a warning, and a shield. It holds the first entry of an investment Robert made in 1995. A little-known online bookseller he was convinced would change the world. He was right. That single entry, a modest five-figure sum, grew into the $19,427,316.58 that sat waiting for me after he was gone. And it is the reason my life did not completely shatter after it was already broken. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 68 years old, and for the last 5 years I have been a widow. Before that, I was a wife, a partner, and a mother. I thought those roles defined me. I was wrong. It was the role I took on after Robert's passing, that of a silent guardian of a secret fortune, that truly showed me who I was, and more terrifyingly, who my son had become. When Robert died, the world went grey. The vibrant colours of our life together, our travels, our quiet evenings, the shared laughter over a bottle of wine, all faded into muted tones of grief. He had a sudden, massive coronary. One moment he was complaining about the squirrels stealing from the bird feeder, the next he was gone. Our son, Michael, and his wife Chloe were my anchors in that storm. Michael, my only child, my beautiful boy. He had Robert's height and thoughtful brow, but my softer heart, or so I believed. He was a financial advisor, moderately successful, and had married Chloe 5 years prior. Chloe was a vision, polished, elegant, with a smile that could charm a snake out of its skin, and a voice like honeyed whiskey. She was always perfectly coiffed, her nails immaculate, her sympathy perfectly calibrated. They rushed to my side, handling the funeral arrangements, fielding calls, filling my house with casseroles and murmured condolences. "Mum, don't you worry about a thing," Michael would say, his arm around my shoulder. "We're here. We'll take care of everything." Chloe would nod, her emerald eyes brimming with what I mistook for sincere compassion. "Eleanor, you just focus on grieving. Let us handle the practicalities. Robert wouldn't want you to be burdened." And I let them. I was a ship without a rudder, drifting in a sea of sorrow. The thought of paperwork, of wills and probate was unbearable. About a month after the funeral, we all met with Robert's longtime friend and estate lawyer, Arthur Covington. His office was old-world comfort, leather chairs, the scent of old books and lemon polish. Arthur, a kind man with sad eyes and a steady demeanour, laid out the will. It was straightforward. I was the primary beneficiary. The house, our modest savings, Robert's pension, a life insurance policy worth about $300,000, and a portfolio of stocks and bonds worth just shy of $1 million. Michael was to receive a lump sum of $250,000. I saw a flicker of something in Chloe's eyes, a brief, sharp tightening. It was gone in an instant, replaced by that serene smile. "Oh, that's so generous of Robert," she said, placing a hand on Michael's arm. "We weren't expecting anything, of course." Michael nodded, looking at me. "Mum, this is all yours. The $250,000 is great, but really we just want to make sure you're comfortable." It seemed like a perfectly respectable inheritance. We'd always lived comfortably, but not extravagantly. Our neighbours were teachers and dentists, not titans of industry. A total estate of around $2 million after selling the house felt right. It felt like us. I was relieved. It was simple. After Michael and Chloe left, promising to take me to dinner that weekend, Arthur held up a hand. "Eleanor, wait. There's something else." He pulled a thick, sealed manila envelope from his desk drawer. My name was written on it in Robert's familiar, decisive script. Robert structured things unusually, Arthur said, his voice low. He created a separate trust, completely shielded from the main estate. It was his private venture. He wanted it kept that way. What's in this envelope and the documents it pertains to are for you and you alone. It was his most explicit final instruction. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a letter from Robert and a portfolio statement from a private wealth management firm I'd never heard of. Blackwood and Stern. I read the letter first. My dearest Eleanor, if you are reading this, then my worst fear has come to pass, and I have left you to navigate this world alone. I am so sorry, my love. My heart aches knowing I am not there to hold your hand. There is a financial matter I must explain. The ledger in my desk, the one labelled Project Acorn, was my long-shot bet. That bet paid off in ways I could never have imagined. The enclosed statement will show you the result. It is a vast sum, Ellie, more than we ever dreamed of, and it is all yours. You are probably wondering why I have kept it separate, and why I have not included Michael in this. This is the hardest part of this letter to write. I love our son, but I do not trust his judgment, and I most certainly do not trust the woman he married. I have seen things you have not, my love. Perhaps your mother's heart blinded you, and I pray I am wrong, but I have seen the way Chloe looks at things, not at people, but at things. I have heard the way she steers Michael's ambition, not towards accomplishment, but towards acquisition. She is a predator, Eleanor, and she is hunting. I fear she has taught our son to be the same. I have left him a generous amount in the public will. If he is grateful for that, if he continues to be a loving and supportive son to you without knowledge of this greater fortune, then by all means, when you feel the time is right, share it with him as you see fit. But if he is not, if his character proves to be as malleable as I fear, then this money is your shield, it is your independence, it is my final act of protecting you. Be wise, my love. Watch and listen. Trust your instincts. They have never failed you yet. Forever yours, Robert. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the second document, the portfolio statement. I scanned the columns of numbers, my mind struggling to process the string of zeros. At the bottom of the page, the final tally, $19,427,316.58. $19 million. The air left my lungs. It felt like a fantasy, a misprint. Arthur gave me a moment, then gently explained. The initial investment was in Amazon, back when it was just a whisper. Robert had sold a significant portion years ago and diversified, guided by the discreet experts at Blackwood and Stern. The trust was ironclad, registered offshore, legally and solely in my name. As far as the world, and my son, was concerned, my net worth was what was read from the first will. What do I do, Arthur? I whispered, the paper crinkling in my fist. You do exactly what Robert advised, he said softly. You watch, and you listen. And so I did. I thanked Michael profusely for his inheritance. He and Chloe made a big show of investing it wisely, talking about a down payment on a bigger house. For the first year, things were normal. They called every few days, had me over for Sunday dinner. Chloe would bring me little gifts, a cashmere scarf, a fancy-scented candle. They were attentive, loving even. But I was watching. I saw the way Chloe's eyes scanned my home, not with nostalgia but with appraisal. The antique grandfather clock, the silver tea set from my mother. It was as if she were taking inventory. I heard the subtle questions Michael would pepper into our conversations. Are you sure you're okay in this big house, Mum? It's a lot of upkeep. Managing that portfolio must be a headache. I could help you with that, get you a better return. Have you thought about maybe freeing up some capital? You should be enjoying yourself, traveling, cruises. I always demurred. Oh, I'm fine, dear. The house is full of memories. Or, Mr. Henderson at the bank has been handling my finances for years. I trust him. I lived exactly as I had before. I drove my 10-year-old Buick. I shopped at the same grocery store. I tended my garden. I volunteered at the library. I gave no sign that my financial status had changed in any way. In my heart, a painful, secret experiment was underway. I was testing my own son, praying with every fibre of my being that he would pass, that Robert's fears were the paranoid ramblings of an overprotective husband. The first major crack appeared about 18 months after Robert's death. They invited me to dinner at a trendy, ridiculously expensive restaurant. "We have some news," Michael announced, beaming. Chloe sat beside him, glowing, a perfectly manicured hand resting on his. "I'm quitting my job at the firm," he said. "I'm starting my own boutique investment company with a partner." "Oh, Michael, that's a big step," I said, a genuine thrill of pride mixing with a knot of anxiety. "It's the opportunity of a lifetime," Chloe interjected smoothly. "Michael is too talented to be making money for other people, but starting a business, the initial capital is substantial." There it was. The silence hung in the air, thick with expectation. I sipped my water, my heart beating a slow, heavy drum. "We were hoping," Michael started, then faltered. Chloe picked it up seamlessly. "What Michael is trying to say, Eleanor, is that we could use a little help. An investment, really. We know the $1 million from Robert's portfolio is just sitting there. If you invested, say, half of it with us, we could guarantee you a fantastic return. You'd be a founding partner." I looked at my son. His eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. He was staring at his bread plate, a flush creeping up his neck. My son, who had never been able to lie to me, was now a co-conspirator in a play directed by his wife. Robert's words echoed in my head. She steers his ambition towards acquisition. I manufactured a warm, slightly apologetic smile. "Oh, darlings, that sounds wonderful. And I'm so proud of you. But I can't. Your father was very conservative with that money. It's my security blanket. I'm an old woman. I can't be taking risks with venture capital. I'm sure you understand." Chloe's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. It was like watching a beautiful sunlit lake freeze over in a second. Michael just mumbled, "Of course, Mum. I understand." The dinner ended quickly after that. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and sorrow. The test had begun, and the first results were in. Their calls became less frequent. Sunday dinners were replaced with excuses. When they did visit, the atmosphere was strained. Chloe was all brittle politeness, while Michael seemed perpetually agitated. They started talking about their own financial struggles, always within my earshot. "The rent on the new office is just criminal," Chloe would sigh, loud enough for me to hear from the kitchen. "If we could just land one big investor, we'd be set," Michael would mutter back. They were trying to lay a guilt trip, to make me feel responsible for their struggles. But I had Arthur. Unbeknownst to them, I had him do a quiet background check on Michael's new business. The news was not good. The partner was a man with 2 failed startups and a reputation for burning through investor cash. The business plan was flimsy, all buzzwords and no substance. My $500,000 would have been vaporized in 6 months. The pressure intensified. The next front in their war was my house. "Mum, we've been talking," Michael said one afternoon, ambushing me as I was weeding my petunias. "Chloe and I are really worried about you here alone." "I'm perfectly fine, Michael." "But what if you fell? The stairs, the yard work. It's too much. We found a lovely senior community just 20 minutes from us. It's got a pool, social activities. It's a nursing home, Michael. It's an assisted living facility, Chloe corrected, appearing at his side as if on cue. It's for your own good, Eleanor. We could sell this house, and the money would ensure you're taken care of for the rest of your life. We wouldn't have to worry so much. They didn't care about me falling. They cared about the equity locked in the walls around me. They wanted to liquidate my life, put me in a box, and pocket the proceeds. My answer is no, I said, my voice firmer than I intended. This is my home. Robert and I built it. I will leave it when I am ready, and not a moment before. That was the day my loving son and daughter-in-law turned into something else entirely. Their campaign of gentle persuasion morphed into a cruel and insidious form of psychological warfare. It started subtly. Things in the house would go missing. My reading glasses, the remote control, my keys. I'd find them in strange places, like the freezer or the linen closet. I knew I hadn't put them there. Then Chloe started helping me with my mail. Oh, Eleanor, you have so many bills, it must be overwhelming. Let me sort them for you. I later discovered 2 credit card payments were late because she'd misplaced the statements. The late fees were a nuisance, but the goal was clear: to build a narrative that I was becoming forgetful and incompetent. They began talking to my neighbors, my friends from my book club. Their voices would be dripping with faux concern. We're so worried about Mum. She seems to be slipping. Did she tell you about the time she forgot to turn the stove off? We were so scared. A lie, of course. A complete fabrication. But mud sticks. Some of my friends started looking at me differently, with pity in their eyes. They'd speak to me slowly, as if I were a child. The isolation was suffocating. It was a prison they were building around me, brick by brick. The final, unforgivable act came on a Tuesday morning. There was a knock on the door. It wasn't Michael or Chloe. It was a woman in a crisp suit who introduced herself as a social worker, accompanied by a man she introduced as Dr. Evans, a geriatric psychiatrist. Mrs. Vance, the social worker said, her smile not reaching her eyes. Your son and daughter-in-law requested we stop by. They've expressed some serious concerns about your ability to care for yourself independently. My blood ran cold. They were trying to have me declared legally incompetent. They were trying to strip me of my autonomy, to gain conservatorship over me and my assets, over the money they didn't even know about. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it, the utter betrayal, knocked the wind out of me. I almost broke. I almost crumpled to the floor and wept for the son I had lost, the boy I had raised, who was now trying to destroy me for a house and a few $100,000. But then I thought of Robert's letter. This money is your shield. It is my final act of protecting you. My spine turned to steel. Please, come in, I said, my voice even and calm. I offered them tea. I answered their questions clearly and concisely. I spoke about my volunteer work, my finances, the ones they knew about, my daily routine. I could see the confusion on their faces. I was not the doddering, confused old woman they had been led to expect. Dr. Evans asked me the standard cognitive test questions. Who is the president? What year is it? Count backwards from 100 by sevens. I answered them all perfectly. Mrs. Vance, Dr. Evans said finally, your son mentioned you've had some financial difficulties recently, missing payments. Ah, yes, I said, taking a sip of my tea. That was shortly after my daughter-in-law, Chloe, began helping with my mail. The problem stopped as soon as I got a post office box and had everything forwarded there. A simple solution. I let the implication hang in the air. They left an hour later looking perplexed. I knew it wasn't over. This was just their opening salvo. They had declared war, and they had no idea how heavily armed I was. The moment their car pulled away, I called Arthur Covington. I didn't cry. My voice was clipped, cold, and full of a fury I didn't know I possessed. "Arthur," I said, "it's Eleanor. Robert was right. About everything. I want you to hire the best private investigator you can find. I want to know everything about Michael's business. I want to know everything about Chloe, where she came from, who her family is, every job she's ever had, every man she's ever dated. Spare no expense. I want an arsenal." "I'm on it, Eleanor," he said, his voice grim. "I'm so sorry it's come to this." "I'm not," I said, and I was surprised to find that I meant it. The grief for my son was still there, a hard, cold stone in my chest, but it was now surrounded by a white-hot rage. They wanted to erase me. I was about to show them just how substantial I was. The next 2 weeks were a blur of clandestine activity. While Michael and Chloe were busy filing a petition for conservatorship with the court, citing my erratic behavior and financial mismanagement, Arthur and I were building our counter-offensive. The investigator, a former FBI agent named David Chen, was worth every penny, and the secrets he unearthed were more damning than I could have imagined. Michael's business was a complete sham. It was hemorrhaging money. They had leased a lavish office they couldn't afford, hired staff they couldn't pay, and were living a life funded by high-interest loans and maxed-out credit cards. Worse, Michael had forged my signature on a loan application, listing me as a guarantor, using my known assets as collateral. The bank had already sent a default notice to my new P.O. box, but the real revelations were about Chloe. Her name wasn't even Chloe. She was born Kimberly O'Malley from a dirt-poor town in Nevada. She had reinvented herself completely. She'd left a trail of debt and broken hearts across 3 states. Her first husband, a wealthy man 20 years her senior, had died under mysterious circumstances. A boating accident where she was the only witness. He'd left her a surprisingly small amount of money, suggesting he'd grown wise to her before his demise. She had declared bankruptcy twice. She wasn't just a gold digger, she was a professional predator, a black widow in designer clothing. And she had sunk her fangs deep into my son. Armed with this information, Arthur filed a counter-petition. We arranged a meeting. A mediation, we called it. We invited Michael, Chloe, and their lawyer to Arthur's office. They walked in smelling of victory, their expressions a smug mix of feigned concern and triumph. Michael wouldn't look at me. Chloe, however, met my gaze with a look of pure, icy condescension. "Eleanor," their lawyer, a slick man named Peterson, began, "we're glad you've agreed to this. The goal here is simply to ensure your safety and well-being." "My safety is the last thing you're concerned about," I said, my voice quiet but carrying across the large room. Arthur cleared his throat and gestured to the thick files on the table in front of him. "Before we discuss my client's well-being, let's discuss some other matters. Mr. Vance, let's start with your company, Vance Capital Partners." He proceeded to lay out, in excruciating detail, the state of their insolvency, the debt, the failed investments, the impending lawsuits from unpaid employees. Michael's face went from tan to pale to a sickly shade of grey. "And then there's the matter of this," Arthur said, sliding a copy of the fraudulent loan application across the table. "That's your mother's signature, is it not? Because an expert handwriting analyst is prepared to testify that it is a forgery. That's bank fraud, Michael. A federal offense." Michael looked like he was going to be sick. Chloe, however, was unshaken. "This is ridiculous. My husband was only trying to build a future, and his mother has a moral obligation to support him." "An obligation?" Arthur raised an eyebrow. Interesting choice of words. "Let's talk about you, Miss O'Malley." The blood drained from Chloe's face. For the first time, her perfect composure cracked. Arthur detailed her past, her real name, The dead husband, the bankruptcies, the string of lawsuits from creditors she'd left in her wake. "You're a parasite, Chloe," I said, the words falling from my lips like chips of ice. "You attached yourself to my son, and you've been slowly draining the life out of him, convincing him to betray his own mother for a payday that was never going to come." "You old bitch," she hissed, the mask finally gone, revealing the ugly, grasping creature beneath. "You've been sitting on all that money, too selfish to help your own family." Michael stared at her, then at me, utterly lost. "Mum, I didn't—" "Save it, Michael," I said. The pity I felt for him was curdling into contempt. "You made your choice. You chose her. You chose this path of deceit and cruelty. You stood by while she gaslighted me. You tried to steal my home, and then you tried to have me locked away and declared a non-person. All for what? $1 million? I let the question hang in the air. Their lawyer was sweating, shuffling his papers, realizing he'd been brought to a gunfight with a strongly worded letter. Then, Arthur delivered the final, devastating blow. "You see," he said, leaning forward, his voice a low, theatrical whisper. "You went to all this trouble, destroyed your family, and committed federal crimes, all under a complete misapprehension of the facts." He produced another file. This one contained a single, pristine document, the statement from Blackwood and Stern. He placed it in the center of the table. "My husband," I said, watching their eyes fixate on the paper, "was a very wise man. He saw you coming, Chloe. He knew you would poison my son, and he made provisions." Michael and Chloe leaned forward. I watched them read the number at the bottom of the page. I watched the dawning comprehension, the shock, the avarice, and then the utter soul-crushing despair wash over their faces. $19 million. A fortune they never knew existed. A fortune they had just permanently and irrevocably lost. Chloe's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Michael looked at me, his face a mask of agony. It wasn't just the loss of the money. It was the realization of the magnitude of his foolishness, the sheer, epic stupidity of his betrayal. He had traded his mother's love and a potential share of an immense fortune for nothing. Less than nothing. This can't be real," he stammered. "Oh, it's very real," Arthur said cheerfully, "and it is all legally and untouchably Eleanor's. The conservatorship petition is being withdrawn, Mr. Peterson, unless you'd like to face a countersuit for malicious prosecution and elder abuse. Furthermore, we will be pressing charges for the bank fraud, and we will be forwarding Mr. Chen's extensive file on your clients to the District Attorney's Office and the IRS. Checkmate." The aftermath was brutal, swift, and entirely of their own making. It was karma delivered not by a mystical force, but by a team of very expensive lawyers and investigators. Michael's sham company collapsed into bankruptcy. The bank fraud charge led to a plea bargain. He was sentenced to 18 months in a minimum security federal prison. He lost his financial licenses forever. Public humiliation was absolute. Chloe, true to Robert's prediction, proved to have the loyalty of a shark. The moment the $19 million was revealed to be unattainable and criminal charges were on the table, she vanished. She filed for divorce from Michael while he was awaiting sentencing, stripped their rented house of anything valuable, and disappeared back into the ether from which she'd emerged, presumably to find a new host. Michael wrote me a letter from prison, a long, rambling, self-pitying screed, full of excuses and blame. He blamed Chloe. He blamed the pressure of his career. He even subtly blamed me for not telling him about the money sooner, as if my secrecy was the cause of his monstrous behavior. He never once took full responsibility. He never once simply said, "I am sorry for what I did to you." I never wrote back. The son I loved died long before that letter was ever sent. What was left was a stranger, a weak man hollowed out by greed. Mourning him was a second bereavement, in some ways harder than losing his father. Robert's death was a tragedy. Michael's was a choice. And me, I did not sell the house. I live here still, surrounded by the memories of a better time, a complete family. I did not buy a yacht or a penthouse. Robert didn't leave me that money to live extravagantly. He left it to live freely. I set up a foundation in Robert's name, the Acorn Fund, which provides seed money to bright young entrepreneurs who have great ideas but no connections, the kind of person Robert was when he made that first life-changing investment. I travel. I've seen the cherry blossoms in Japan, the pyramids in Egypt, the wild coasts of Ireland. I've reconnected with the friends Michael and Chloe tried to poison me against, and they have rallied around me with fierce loyalty. Sometimes, when the house is quiet at night, I take out that old leather ledger. I run my hand over the cover and think about the man who saw the storm coming and built me an ark. He didn't just leave me money. He left me a lifeline. He left me the means to defend myself, to survive, and ultimately to find peace. I never told my son about the $19 million my husband left me, and thank God I didn't. It would have been his inheritance. Instead, it became my salvation. It was the tool I used to uncover the truth, and the armor that protected me when that truth tried to tear me apart. The money didn't save my family, but it did save me from them. And for that, I am eternally, heartbreakingly grateful.